Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you. Lovely to see people on camera as well. I understand some of you will be finishing your school day, some of you will be just before it. I know we've got people on here that I recognize some names from Mexico, as well as people that are in Asia, as well as people that are in the UK. So thank you so much for your time, for being here. We have scheduled an hour. You'll be pleased to know that we expect it to be 45 minutes. We'll try and make it kind of concise as possible and a real introduction into more about the resources and actually how you can run them, as well as an opportunity for you to ask some questions as well. We do have something I like to start with, just as people are coming into the room, as you're getting settled. If you have a phone, or you can actually do it on your computer as well, just join us at Slidercom and enter this. If you scan the QR code on your phone, it will take you there actually directly. And this is just something that some of you may have experienced. There's a couple of people here. I can see some international teacher ambassadors of ours that are here, which is amazing. You may have done this with me before, but this is something also that you can do with your students as well. And whilst you're logging on to that and more people are coming into the room, I just want to introduce myself. My name's Ed. I'm the founder of Empathy Week, which is now going into its 4th year. And I'm here with my colleague, who's also going to be talking to you, Miriam, who is the curriculum and research lead, who helps, leads all of the kind of education resources that go alongside the films. So we have us here today to take you through everything. So if you can, this is all anonymous, by the way, and it's going to be useful because we're just going to start with it. It's also got a Q&A function, which is also partly why I'm using it. So I'm just getting it up on my phone. So at the moment, you'll see there's a poll, and there's also on the left-hand side of the poll, there's also a Q&A. So you can ask some questions there as well, or you can use the chat box here as well. So if you don't use your phone, you can, thanks Miriam, you put slider.com. We see some things coming through now. Amazing. So focusing on work outside of school, supporting my family to be happy and healthy, trying to acquire more students. They're coming in and through now. Amazing. Spending time with family. Wow. Okay, they're all coming through now. Great. Amazing. You're getting these. So considering my next move, I don't know if that's good or bad. Balancing my work life and work-life balance. I'm planning several initiatives for this year. So I'm a little worried about if I'm going to end with satisfactory results. My health. Make sure I do some creative activities. Amazing. I'm just scrolling down to some that we might have missed. Taking part in the Building Racial Literacy course up here in Scotland. Eye-opening, thought-provoking reflections are deep. Amazing. Spending time with family. We have an accreditation visit. I'm doing better emotionally and mentally after a very tough year. Amazing. Training my mad dogs. It's good to see some funny ones come through as well. So amazing. Now, the reason I asked this and the reason we're starting with this is because it just puts you into the perspective of other people. We all come with our own perspectives, with all of the things that are going on in our lives, especially if you've just had your full day, or if you've just woken up, or if you're really at the end of your day. I know some people are going to be at 10, 11 p.m. at night on this call. And this is something you can do with your students as well. Miriam and I have both been teachers. Miriam, primary school teacher for 6 and a bit years, myself, a secondary school teacher for 3 years. And we understand, that the students' lives are all very different, but so are ours as well. In fact, everyone's. There's so much going on. And the reason I ask what's the most important thing rather than what's the best thing or the worst thing is because the most important thing opens your eyes to kind of actually what's on the mind of people at the moment. Is it positive? Is it negative? Considering my next move, I don't know if that's positive or negative, but it does give me some information about, okay, there's a real change in that person's life. And just getting a glimpse of, you think about all these people that are on this call now, all of these different life situations that are going on. Now, the reason I start with this is because empathy is the skill that allows you to take that a bit further, to try and understand what someone else is feeling, thinking, doing, and with that, able to build better relationships. So hopefully now, if you're on your screen, or if you're on your mobile, the next, here we go. What is empathy? your phone will have automatically switched to this question, or your screen will have switched to this question, and you can just ask here, so what is empathy? So I'm asking you here, I suppose, to define what empathy is, or what you perceive empathy as being. You can either write a word, you can write a sentence. It's up to you. Okay, great. So this is a word cloud, so ones that have been, we're going to see hopefully some relatively similar ones. So being able to put yourself in the situation of others, the ability to feel what another feels, walking in other people's shoes, understanding the other person's perspective, listening without judgment. That one's coming up twice now. Understanding, connection, being an active listener, caring about the feelings of others, listening to others' experiences, understanding. Great. Amazing. I always expect understanding to come out first, as you'll see in a minute, based on the kind of slides that we've got coming up, and we absolutely agree with that. It's not just about the emotions of another. It's not just about the perspectives of another. There is actually a lot more to it. It's also contextual. And I find that if you read the definition of empathy, it's not as clear cut as it should be. It makes it too simplified. Actually, empathy is about understanding someone from understanding someone that is in a different context to you. And it's not just about, okay, I understand how that person feels and therefore I can empathize with them. You also need to know their perspectives. You also need to understand the previous element of it. We always see someone walking in someone else's shoes. I think we kind of say that's a good kind of start, especially with young students, really young students. It's a great way to express it. But for older students, we try and move away from that saying, because, for example, myself, if I was trying to walk in the shoes of Pankaj, who was someone that I filmed in 2020, who was born in a slum, I'm bringing all of my past experiences and cultural reference points of being born in the UK into his current situation, and that doesn't really allow me to truly empathize with him. What we kind of see empathy as is actually Pankaj staying in his shoes, him grabbing my hand, and him showing me what his life is like and his experiences to truly empathize. And it's that understanding that you never will truly understand what someone else's life is, but we can get very close to it. And by doing that and allowing someone else to talk about their own experiences, we are able to actually get closer to what empathy is, rather than putting ourselves in the center of that story. So for our definition it's the skill to understand another and the ability to create space for someone to reveal their authentic self whilst reserving judgment. Now, that might be complicated depending on level of students, whether you've got SEN students as well, especially particularly young students. So we do revert back to thinking about empathy as understanding at every point in time. How can I understand the situation better? Many of you will be starting or have already implemented restorative justice practices with dealing with incidents in your schools. Empathy is a central component to that. And it links to, right, that person may have wronged you, but let's try and understand, why did they do that? What was the scenario? How can we actually fully understand what's happened? And empathy doesn't mean that you agree with someone either. It's very much about understanding. You can still empathize with someone and disagree with them. So, as I've put here, the reason why this is important is empathy is understanding. If you can increase understanding, you can build greater connection. If you can build greater connection, you can build greater trust in your classrooms. If you can build greater trust, you build better relationships. Think of the people that you have a great relationship with. No doubt you trust them and you have a good connection, but those things come first. If we have great relationships, this is what is the foundation of great well-being and belonging. All the science shows that people that have great relationships at home, at work, they have an increased sense of well-being and they feel like they belong. And if you have these things, then you get the increased productivity, happiness, results. We're obsessed with empathy because it leads to behavior change. Many of you will do programs around kindness. I think that's great. But for us, we always say kindness is wasted without empathy. Empathy is a skill, kindness is an act. So what we're trying to do is really help schools and teachers actually build this skill of empathy, which means stopping yourself in a moment where you think that you want to act and say, actually, have I understood this situation? Have I understood this person? What's going on? Miriam isn't lactose intolerant, but if she was, and I, for example, was like, right, Miriam, I'm going to thank you so much for all your work for Empathy Week this year. I'm going to give you loads of chocolate. That, no doubt that's a kind act, but then she could turn around and say, actually, I'm lactose intolerant. Now that's a really a really simple example, but had I deployed empathy, had I really understood who Miriam is as a person, I would know she's lactose intolerant, and I would then have bought her maybe a different gift. That's a really simple example, but it's trying to just show the difference between kindness and empathy, but also the power that it has. Now, I'm not going to go into this. Some of you will have seen this on an introductory webinar if you took part. Empathy has lots and lots of benefits, including increasing creativity, reducing cyberbullying, increasing leadership capacity, as well as team building. We've also done our own research pilot study with Cambridge last year. We're hoping to do more this year as well, and so look out for a message about that. But I've just sort of summarized some of the findings here as well. So we are really, really dedicated to trying to actually use these films and programs to actually change behavior in students and change behavior in your students. Now, you will be best placed to know how to use the resources, like any teacher. It's not that we can say, right, you have to run it exactly like this. We're going to talk about how you can run it, but you will be best placed to go, hang on, we did this thing 3 weeks ago, or we had this person come and speak about disability. We can link this to Empathy Week. You'll be able to connect the dots to this program. And if you do that, you should find that these statements will be true for your school as well. So you will start to see increased self-compassion, increased pride in oneself, and actually feeling worthy of praise, wanting to find out about other people's lives. And some of the stats on here also were increased empathy for students as well. So this year, our theme is opportunity in education. Those of you that take part in Empathy Week before will know that we have a different theme. So this theme kind of runs through the education resources, but also the films. And before I just quickly go over the kind of background to how to access the resources and all of that sort of stuff, just why film is so powerful. So film as a tool, the ideal situation would be that we picked up the students in your school, chucked them on a plane, sent them to Nepal this year to meet Tendi, Bhavana, and all the people that are in the films. Obviously, that's not possible. The next best thing for us is film. We'll all have our favorite film. We'll all have maybe had that feeling in the cinema or at home watching a film, gives you goosebumps or makes you feel emotionally attached, or you experience something that changes the way that you think. Maybe it's for 10 minutes, maybe it's for a week. There'll be films that have changed people's lives. There are certainly films that have changed the way that society acts as well. So there's one of two ways. You've probably read this by now, but you either resonate with it or you don't. Both are great. The first one gives the student or the person in the film permission, agency to say, actually, I feel a bit like that. They feel less alienated about their own problems. They feel like they can bounce problems off of the character maybe that they've seen, not even problems, just situations that they've been in. And then student 2 or person 2 maybe hasn't experienced anything like that at all, but then all of a sudden gets a new perspective into life. But the most powerful thing that we didn't realize when we started Empathy Week, which is what happens, is this, that because of those hands raising, because of the conversations, because of the reflective questions, all of the things that happen after the films, actually then the discussions take place. We've had teachers tell us that they've spent an hour just on one reflective question because it sparks so much debate and so much conversation. And that's amazing. We've also had teachers come back to us and say, you said this was 20 minutes, it's taken us way too long. This is a tool to be used. And if students are asking lots of questions and want to keep talking about that topic, that is a sign to you, it's an indicator that actually as a classroom or as a school, you might need to spend some more time on that. And we've covered lots of different topics, from disability to race to gender to all sorts of things. So each classroom also within your school is going to have different conversations, because the humans in each of those classes is different. This is a deeply human thing. And what I want to get across to you as well is there's no right or wrong. There's no subject leader in your school that can say, do you know what, I have the knowledge of like A-level chemistry or like RE or whatever it is that you teach. This is for every teacher to just be human and say, do you know what, I don't necessarily know the answers, but let's find out. This is about understanding each other, about hearing experiences, and each experience of each student is valid. It might, again, you might not agree with it. Empathy is not about agreeing or disagreeing with each other. It's about understanding, and you have to listen to that approach and accept it, and then you can come back and say, I understand where you're coming from, but this is my view. So that's what we're trying to really build. Now I'm just going to stop, come out of this for a second. I want to talk quickly just about navigating resources. So hopefully, let's stop sharing for a second. Let me just quickly go back to screen share. I'm going to go to desktop. Hopefully, see how messy my, oh, it's because I've gone full screen. There we go, that's better. So I'm just in the 5 to 18 members area. If you've registered already, some of you might not have yet. Some of you might have been like, I'm going to come to teacher training, just see what happens. The back end area of the website, once you get your login, is the members area. We try and make it as simple as possible for teachers to use this, rather than having my experience of any kind of login system with 150 teachers in the school was chaos, because the day it starts, then people can't do passwords, and then one teacher, bless them, has got to go around and organize it all. We make it as simple as possible in the sense that there's one button, you click that. As a lead teacher, it takes you to our Dropbox system. So if I click it now, mine will look different because I own the Dropbox, but yours will just come up with a neater folder file system. So because I'm 5 to 18 package, I've got all of them here. And start here, you've got teacher information pack and the overview, different packs for different ages. Always start there to have a look. So we have the overview document, which is now out, which goes over the topics and everything that's going to be in the films, as well as our suggested timeline. We'll talk more about the stages in a second. Miriam's going to talk about actually what those resources look like and how to use them and how to build those skills. But we give you an overview. So we always say, right, Empathy Week starts the 27th of February, and is that week we have our series of online events, which the portal's going live on Monday, but also start the films and then run the films across 5 weeks. And then we have stage 2, which is the lessons to support further learning, and then we have the projects as well, and we've spread it out over those months. So again, there's an option, lots of different options for you to run it. You can run it all in 1 week, you can spread it out. It's really up to you to look through the resources and say, actually, we might want to use the stage 2 in April, or we have a day that we want to use this. But this is how we suggest that you use it for kind of the optimum use of the resources and how they've been designed. So often spreading out the 5 films across 5 weeks, across all ages, is a great way to do that. So we also try and make it as easy as possible. So we have some support materials, which even include a parental letter. So something that just makes it easy for you to download, edit, send out to parents, try and include them. This year, for schools that are registered, you also get access to the events portal for your parents. So parents can actually watch live webinars with our speakers that we're bringing in, which include Gavin Dykes, who's director of the Education World Forum. We have Lipanessa, who was in film last year on a panel. We have a BBC Sports presenter. We have a man called Juro, who used to be a gang member, but now runs a social enterprise that helps people in leadership. So many different amazing stories and speakers. And that's accessible now for parents as well. And you can watch those back on demand over a month. So even if you're in a different time zone, you can actually access those materials. And I'll show you that in a minute. Here's the teacher pack, which again includes the overview. Sorry, this is a little bit big. The teacher pack actually includes the overview and everything in it, online guidance. Here you can see about the events and the timeline. That's subject to change before Monday, but I'll make sure that's updated. So there's everything is in here that explains what you need to do to run the perfect week. The other thing that we do have, because the films go live, the links within the lessons, some of you may have tried those and they're password protected at the moment. Reason for that is they go live after our virtual premiere and the start of February. However, we have, which is new this year, we do have all of the films, depending on the age, out in text, so text transcript of every film. Someone made a great point, because they're PDFs at the moment, that actually what we're going to do is upload these as Word documents, which means then that you can also hopefully more easily translate them if you needed to, maybe for a student in your class who has English as a second language, or you're in a country that English is not the native tongue, that you can actually then hopefully quite easily auto-translate it and then add bits to it if it doesn't make sense. So we're also going to add some Word bits into that as well. So that's just a quick, I'm not going to go through all of them, but just how to access the resources here in the members area. What the best thing to do is just, if you click here, download, put them on your school's internal drive. We're very trusting of teachers, their PowerPoints, the lessons, so you can add in your own sort of lessons and assembly, so you can add in your own points as well. Try and make it as easy for you as possible. Obviously, we just ask that you don't put them online anywhere else, which I think is fair. So that's the members area. One last thing, there is also still here, we have Lippa's story from last year, which you can download still. And we also have an introduction to the skill of empathy, a bit like at the start where I was telling you about how we define empathy and how empathy actually is, that you might not think. People, especially young children and students, often think it's about being kind and loving and giving people hugs and kisses, whereas actually it's very different to that. It's a skill that needs to be built in, that is very difficult to do at times. I think the reason I'm so obsessed with it is because I don't think I'm potentially naturally empathetic, but that I've built that over time, and I've seen the benefits that have come from it as well. So hopefully that is all really useful for you. I'm now going to hand over to Miriam, who is going to take over. Are you going to take the screen share if I stop for a second? Yeah. Amazing. Please do, if there's anyone that's got any questions, you can either put them in the chat to me or you can put them in the Slido as well. But Miriam's just going to take over and talk about more depth about the resources and the skills that we're building through the resources.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Ed, and thank you everybody for being here today. It's amazing to see so many of you here. I am Miriam Carter-Fraser. I'm the Research and Curriculum Lead at Empathy Week, and I'm just going to sort of follow on from what Ed said about what we offer in terms of the Empathy Week resources, and just to go through the stages in a bit more detail. Oh, there we go. So we split the Empathy Week resources into 3 stages. We have stage 1, discovering empathy, stage 2, building empathy, and stage 3, the empathy action projects. You can take part in as much or as little as you want. I think most schools start with stage 1. I think that's the fundamental core of what we do. Whether you want to go from stage 1 straight to stage 3 or to take part in bits of stage 2 as well, it's entirely up to you. To follow on with what Ed said, all of the timings here are suggested. And also all of the resources that we provide to you are editable, and we're also very available in terms of providing support in terms of how you would like to adapt the resources to best suit your class. After I finish speaking, I'll send my email address I'll put my email address into the chat. So if there's anything in particular that you would like advice or support on how to adapt to suit your setting in particular, please contact me. That's why I'm here. It's my job, so, and I love it. So please do let me know. We're going to talk through the stages very quickly and give some examples of different activities so you know what to expect. We're using examples from last year's resources, so some of you may be familiar with them and some of you may not, but hopefully it will give you an idea of what to expect when you click that download all button that Ed just showed you. Here is a summary of our learning framework. I do suggest, and we'll provide a link for this afterwards, there is a sort of a more detailed document available on our website, which goes through all of the stages and all of the key skills in more detail. And as Ed said, with your teacher pack that you can get in the 2023 download, it gives you a more detailed timeline, again suggested, but just how we know it works within schools. Start with stage 1. So this is discovering empathy. there are 5 incredible films. I'm lucky to have seen them all already, and also to have met the 5 incredible people that the films focus on when Ed and I were in Nepal February last year. All of the films are differentiated for the different age groups. They are differentiated in terms of the length of the film, but also the complexity of the topics covered and the content of the discussions that follow up in the lessons. As Ed said, all of the films are united this year by the theme of opportunity and education. And again, that is addressed in a sort of a developmentally appropriate way. If you take part in stage 1, the teachers will receive presentations to show their class, to guide reflections and discussions, as well as feelings check-ins before and after the watching of the films to structure your lessons. We're an international community, and we understand that there are sensitivities around particular issues. Again, that is something that we can provide particular support to. But if you look at the topic overview, that gives you an idea, even before having seen the films, of what issues are covered in which film. And so please feel free, if you think the 8 to 11 film suits your class better than the 11 to 18, choose that, and you've got all of the resources there to support you. The stage 1 sessions, they're designed to be delivered in a sort of 15 to 20-minute session. So that could be in a classroom or in an assembly, whether that's a small or a large group. You've got the times of the films here. So again, that's one way in which we differentiate the resources. And each of the presentations for the stage 1 lessons or assemblies contains 3 questions related to the themes explored in the films, but also relating what they see in the film to the students' own experiences, and also addressing the students' responses to watching the films. And this is where at Ed's diagram with the student 1 and student 2 comes in. We will all receive the films in a different way. We will all relate it to different experiences in our own lives in different ways. And it's the connecting those different responses, that's where the empathy starts to develop. The teacher's guide to the lessons includes prompts to help structure the conversations. You may find, as Ed said, that one of the questions will take you 20 minutes to discuss, and your students have more and more questions and they want to take the conversation off in a different way. However, the teacher's guide does provide different ways in which you can support the conversation and steer it towards a productive and collaborative session in which everyone is building empathy. All of the stage 1 sessions finish with a takeaway thought. That is a quote from the main figure of the film. Here we have Chiran. And so it'd be something that Chiran had said, that day, in that moment, the students can think, okay, I'm going to learn from that, and this is what I'm going to do. So we always think, what do the films make the students feel? What do they make them think? And what do they make them want to do? And that's the purpose of the takeaway thought. This is an example, this is the Empathy Week feelings wheel. So before watching the film and after watching each film, the students have the opportunity to take part in a feelings check-in. We have the primary version here on the left and the secondary version here on the right. This is a fantastically useful tool that we know many schools have adopted and sort of taken, they now use in part of their sort of everyday practice. And using the colours, using the words, and using the sort of the different gradients of the colours, students they find this a very useful tool to build the vocabulary and the confidence to express how they're thinking and how they're feeling. It's also a really useful tool to get them to compare. It's a conversation starter essentially, and we use this in different ways through the feelings check-ins throughout the week in stage 1, and it's also used in stage 2 too. We have some examples here of some reflective questions that we used last year, just to show you some differentiation. So we have ages 5 to 7 on the left, and ages 11, this is ages 14 to 16 on the right. They're very open questions, and we do that purposefully because we don't want to dictate. We're not going to give you a script to have, as Ed said, this is a human activity, it's a human experience, and so we purposefully make the questions quite open. But as I said, in the teacher's guide, there are prompts and hints to make the conversations with sort of contextual information to support the conversation should you need it. Now we go on to stage 2. We split stage 2 into 2 different sections. Essentially, we provide you with 10 lessons They're 20 to 30-minute sessions, again, suggested timings, but we have half of them that are empathy with myself and half of them that are empathy with others. The kind of the theory behind that is, in order to understand other people, we need to understand ourselves. So we would suggest starting with empathy with myself. As Ed touched on before, empathy, and as we sort of saw with the slider that we did, empathy means a lot of different things to different people. And it's a big concept to get your head around, and also to embody and to act on. The way that we have decided to approach it in terms of empathy being a teachable skill, and there are studies showing that it is teachable, and now we know that this approach works thanks to our research that we did last year, we have split it into 6 key skills. 3 of them are focused on building empathy with oneself, and 3 of them are focused on building empathy with others. Each of the lessons that you will get for stage 2 will focus on one of these key skills. And as a teacher, I think we're all teachers here, these are all things that are incredibly valuable to any classroom. So I'm just going to talk you through what we mean by each key skill and give an example of an activity that we have used to promote and develop that skill. Processing thoughts and feelings is to equip the students with the confident skills and vocabulary to recognize how they are feeling and what they think. I've already shown you the feelings wheels. That's a great starting point. It's building that vocabulary and learning, allowing the children and the students to learn how and why to talk about their feelings in a non-judgmental environment. An example that we did for this last year with the 5 to 7s, it's sort of a feelings chart. So there are different ways. We all laugh for different reasons. It might be because we find something really funny. It might be because we are nervous. It might be because we don't know what else to do. And so this feelings chart is an opportunity for the children and or the students in different ways to draw or write how they are acting, what that means that they are feeling, and how they would like other people to respond to this. Oh, did I miss one? And for the older students here, we did a journaling exercise. We use a lot of scenario-based discussion and activities throughout the Empathy Week resources. So on the left here, we had an example of someone who was feeling very tired. We all know how feeling tired makes us behave perhaps in different ways. And then the students had the opportunity to do a journaling exercise about when they felt nervous or confident. Key skill 2 for empathy with myself is applying empathy. So it's learning how to use empathy to make good decisions that support one's own well-being. This includes how to respond to stressful or difficult situations, but also how, and I think this is a really significant point to stress, lots of people think empathy is simply about feeling sorry for somebody or feeling sad or bad about somebody else. However, it's really, really important, and we stress it throughout our resources, that actually empathy is learning how to share and understand all of the emotions and all of the experiences. So it might be how to learn to celebrate with somebody, even if you're feeling disappointed. For the primary students, we focused on Lippa's story, and the students had to draw butterflies that represented themselves. And this related to a part of her film where she was talking about the things that she loved and the things that were that other people made it difficult for her to express. So by drawing the butterflies, it was making decisions and showing people what they wanted to show the world. For the older students, again, it was a scenario-based exercise, and it was kind of how to respond to a really difficult situation. If someone's being racist, or if someone says something offensive and you're stuck in the middle and you want to speak out but you're not quite sure how, it was talking through that kind of situation and learning how to use empathy to stay true to yourself, but also to protect yourself in those difficult situations. And the final skill for empathy with myself is preparing to connect. As Ed said, when we approach understanding someone else's life, we bring ourselves with it. And so it's important that we understand the bias and perhaps the prejudice that we might bring to situations before we profess to truly understanding someone else's experience. For the younger students, this skill is mainly focused on valuing and celebrating diversity. And as the students get older, we then focus on perhaps addressing unconscious bias and also identifying source of prejudice and how you can suspend bias and prejudice when you're meeting with and connecting with other people. For the younger students, it's one of the activities focused on not judging by appearances. And this is, again, purposefully an open question, comparing what might be in the fancy box and what might be in the rubbish bag. Obviously, within this conversation, you would have discussions about indicators of safety and responsibility, but also it related to the film in terms of someone being judged by how they looked and how that felt. And for the slightly older students, we talked about how James, who was in our films last year, how people judge him because he has Down syndrome, and how people might often not take the time to understand or be patient with him in sort of understanding how he spoke and the way he saw the world, and also relating that to the students themselves. So the things that we all find difficult, the things that we need help with, the things that you can do on your own, and the things that actually say, it's not for me. So moving on to stage 2, this is empathy with others. We have the first key skill, which again, I go back to this time, I don't think there is a single classroom in the entire world that could that wouldn't benefit from having some focused listening skills activities. So we talk about practicing empathic listening. So this is listening without interruption, distraction, or judgment. And it's actually a really difficult thing to do, even for teachers. I don't know about you, but sometimes in staff meetings, I feel like listening isn't perhaps at its best. And we focus on learning to communicate meaningfully and how communication is key to forming and maintaining healthy relationships. For the older students, we also apply this to adopting leadership roles, and how listening and communicating meaningfully is just a most fundamental part of being a good leader. So for 5 to 7, we talked about different ways in which you would have to adapt your listening and communication styles to different things. So it could be someone who speaks very quietly, someone who is shy, someone who speaks a different language to you. All of those things that mean that we have to prioritize the person that we're listening to. And the onus is, it puts the onus on the listener to make sure that that communication is meaningful. And for 17 to 18, we looked at some transcripts of conversations. And if you have a quick look on the right-hand side, I feel this is a conversation that goes on in many workplaces all over the world every single day. The sort of, how are you? Yeah, fine. Actually, not. And so it's about learning to respond, not to respond just for the sake of it, but to really listen and to think carefully about what the purpose of the conversation is, and how to listen empathically, by which I mean to understand and to provide support and to establish connection with the person that you're listening to. Key skill number 5 is valuing perspectives. So this is a really, really key one. And this is something that I think surprises people a lot when they think of empathy. As Ed said at the beginning, you can empathize with someone without agreeing with them. And this speaks particularly to my experiences as a primary school teacher. I feel lots of students and young people experience disagreement as conflict or stalemate. And either way, it's the end of the conversation. And what we try to do here is to learn and experience that disagreeing with someone doesn't need to be the end of the conversation. And that actually disagreement and difference in opinion can be, first of all, a fantastic learning opportunity, but also that you don't need to agree with somebody in order to connect with them. You can have wildly diverse opinions, and that isn't necessarily the end to the conversation. So we practice engaging with opinions different to their own, and also we practice allowing them to express their disagreement or their disagreement in a way which isn't confrontational and doesn't stop the possibility of connection. So again, we had scenarios, and this is for ages 5 to 7. It was a friendship-based scenario. And this is a really, really great activity to do. It builds conflict resolution skills, and it allows the students to develop an emotional resilience, whereby if they disagree with their friend, or if they have an argument with their friend, it doesn't mean that that friendship is over. And for the 17 to 18, we had more of a sort of like a hot seat type debate, where the students were asked to adopt an opinion that was different from their own. And in enacting that conversation and having that conversation, adopting a different opinion, it meant that they really had to, they were forced to understand that other opinion, whether it was objectionable to them or not. And the last one, setting intentions. We've got all of these great new skills. What do we do with them? And I know that sort of target setting or sort of personal pledges are quite frequently appear in school, sort of in resource programs and different learning programs. However, this is to empower the students to set intentions with empathy. And so that's combining everything that they've learned and the understanding of themselves and the understanding of other people to really analyze and make their decisions carefully, to set their intentions with an understanding that they might not get there, or they might not get there yet, with an understanding of how their decisions affect other people, how their decisions affect the wider community. For the younger students, we set them, we ask them to make 3 personal targets: how to think about yourselves, how you want to treat other people, and how you want to make the world better. And for 17 to 18, we took a quote from Courtney, who was one of the wonderful people in our films last year. I want to make the world a better place. I want to leave it better than when I came. I know I can't do that on my own. And using that, which I think is a beautiful quote, we asked them to write a personal reflection. Again, you could write it, you could record it, you could film it, you could draw it. But the whole point was to get the students to respond to what they've learned from other people, how they've connected with them through the film, how they've connected with their peers through the discussions about the films, and to think, okay, what now? So they are our key skills, and following the stage 2 lessons, you move on to stage 3, which I think Ed is going to talk about now.
I am. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Miriam, for taking us through that. Brilliant as ever. I just reiterated in the, sorry, I'm trying to move my screen around. There we go. Reiterated in the chat that, you know, you're going through very quickly amongst the skills. There are hundreds of questions that you make across the ages. There's different ages. Really, to get a good understanding, go in and look at the resources, and hopefully you think, well, you should think like, wow, look at all these questions, and this links to these ideas. Again, I want to reiterate that you'll have done stuff in school this year already where Empathy Week will be there to solidify or bring it together. Yeah. One of the favorite piece of feedback I've had is from a head teacher who's going to 3rd, 4th year, doing it with her primary school. And she says it makes the intangible tangible. So that well-being element, that diversity inclusion element, that thing about anti-bullying, the thing about mental health, you can bring those under the umbrella of empathy as that foundation of actually, where does all the good stuff start with diversity inclusion? Starts with understanding. Where does anti-bullying start with? Starts with understanding for the bully as well as the person that's being bullied. Where does celebration of different cultures come from? Respect, integrity. Empathy is at that foundation, and we really hope that Empathy Week, although it's kind of nestled in February and March, but it spreads out across the year. And one of the ways to do that, and again, it's up to you whether you take part in it, is the Empathy Action projects. And we call them Empathy Action because, okay, they're social action projects, but there's a huge element of empathy embedded in them. We want students to think, okay, I don't have a solution to a problem, I have an idea, but I need to go and ask and understand and use empathy first. And also the result of my project has to end with increase in empathy, either for the people that see it or the people that take part. So we have Empathy Action projects. Usually we run them and we say, okay, by the end of kind of May or the end of April, send them in. And we've just listened to teachers each year, tried to improve the program, and what we've given is a lot more flexibility. Some people run this in one day, some people run it in an hour lesson as an activity, some people run it over a course of weeks. The difference is there's 2 kind of sections. There's obviously the primary, the ages 5 to 11, and then there's the 11 to 18-year-olds. The 11 to 18-year-olds, it's very much about they can go off and do their own project. You can introduce it, but they have a pack that's kind of scheduled with different activities and ways to take them through actually how to do this. And then for the primary, there's a classroom-based projects, which are very much, okay, that we can do this in a classroom, we can do it as a group, or we can do it as a whole school. And we have examples from previous years that, again, you can access on the website. But here is kind of generally the timeline. So you have kind of until the 15th of July from the start of April. So you could run it across that time, or you could just do it across a couple of days. New this year as well. There's my face. So you've got two of my face now. There is some, I'm not going to call these webinars, they're recorded tutorials to help, because this year what we want is we want teachers and students to deliver their projects as a film or a video. Now that could either be them scripting a video and doing like a role play and being really creative that way, or it could also be like, actually we're going to do an activity or something in the community, but we're just going to video the process of it and put it together. We love film, we're all about film education and empathy. It makes sense that our projects reflect that, plus students are better now at editing videos and creating stories and things than we ever are, and it's a great way to engage them with it, rather than going, can you please send us some slides that explain your project? Actually, use your phone or use something or borrow something, show us what you're doing. It could even still be a cake sale, but we try and move away from those sort of things. But if it had, okay, actually we did it with another school and we talked about this and it's doing this and we're going to use the money for this, and they show the whole process of it, and that builds understanding and empathy in the people that watch it, as well as they develop empathy through the process. Perfect, amazing. We had student last year, which is on our website, Sally, from a school in Switzerland, and her group won the award for the secondary, the Outstanding Project Award, Global Empathy Awards, which happen every year as a result of the project. And they created these paper cranes and created a rainbow flag, an LGBT flag that hung across the whole school. And they thought it was too simple, and they almost didn't enter. And the judges absolutely loved it, because it did, and they realized as well after they started making it that this, the way they described it, every crane, every paper crane that they made represented, there was one for every student or one for every two students. So it represented the individual nature of every student. They put it on a stairway that everyone has to walk past, that comes in and out through the school. So it evoked questions, it made conversation, it built more understanding from something so simple, and their dedication and time put into it. So students can go any way and do any cause. And I think often we know that all of our students care about something, but often they maybe aren't given the platform or permission to go and do it. And so what we're trying to do is give them a structured approach to do it, but also the freedom to choose what they want to do, but also be rewarded for it in a way of, like, you know, they can be part of the empathy awards. We have students from, I think this year we had schools from Mexico, Italy, Switzerland, Saudi Arabia, somewhere in Asia, I can't remember now, in the UK, all on the call talking about their work and their projects. And the idea is that this year, rather than them coming on screen, they can come on, but also show their video and talk about it and have like a little screening together, which would be amazing. So please do consider taking part in that. I said we'd be under an hour. I'm conscious of that. Hopefully I haven't lied to you. But just some key takeaways. This is a resource that has been born out of the frustrations of ourselves being teachers, and me personally thinking that charity days didn't actually change the behavior of students, and wanting my students to really get out of their bubble, burst their bubble, and experience something new and amazing. But it's also built with the idea that we trust you as teachers and facilitators to take this and run with it and use it in the way that is best suited for your school and even for your classroom. That might even mean not using one of the films. Let me just think of an example. So Santuana, in her film for 11 to 18-year-olds, she talks about not having a father around and men going abroad for work. You may have someone in your classroom that has just lost a father, and that might be a really insensitive time to watch that film. So you take the decision not to watch that, absolutely fine. You know, but that's what we try and warn you against, and try and say, look, really understand the films are going to go live on the 6th of Feb. hopefully before, just after the virtual premiere. But just look through all the text transcripts, look through the overview. The overview document you can get almost instantly. Okay, these are the topics that are going to come up. I know someone that might be affected by them. I'm just going to be more aware of that. Use the website, the hub. I'm just going to show you that in a second. There isn't a wrong way to take part. Some schools just use stage one. Some schools have watched 3 films. Some schools go all the way and do all the project. There's no wrong way to take part. Take this and use it as you want, but please tell us as well. Send us an email. We often just get emails when logins don't work or things don't happen. So it'd be lovely to hear you take part and see some photos and things. And then, like I said, making the intangible tangible, the other things that you already do, and using this as a chance to also involve parents, so to get them to the events as well. Let me just quickly show you again the website just quickly. So here, this is now live, which maybe some of you haven't seen because it might not have been there before. It's a place to send students to for help. So we have a help and support page here. So we always say a trusted teacher, adult, parent is the person to go to first, but there are then helplines, different areas of the internet that they can access no matter what country they're in. So this one, Find a Helpline, is amazing for that. So if people have been affected and maybe they don't want to say anything, for the empathy action projects, that screenshot you saw here is where the tutorials are. So students can access that, they don't have to worry about logging on. And then we also have the empathy wall here, which is what I was saying about showcasing work. If you do have amazing photos, videos and things, please upload them to this wall where you can take part and showcase your work. The last thing I just want to show is, this, which is again tying to the work that you do all year round. You'll be thinking, how do we make this, how do we reference empathy all year round? You do it already, you just maybe don't talk about empathy in that way. Empathy is anything that increases the amount and diversity of experiences. You will increase the level of empathy, but it's not just about increasing it, it's also about nurturing it as a skill, getting people to understand other people's opinions, views. Tell your students, read different newspapers that are left-wing, right-wing, centrist. Listen to people, obviously in different ways, but have this understanding that if you live in a bubble and your social media is in a bubble, and all these algorithms that now work for us that are great when you want to find that recipe that you saw last night and find it again, or you say to your phone that you're looking for a new cooker, and then you all get all these adverts, but they also keep us in this bubble that we know of. So find a way to burst that bubble continuously. Books, films, trips, speakers, all of that good stuff. And the last thing I just want to do is invite you to the virtual premiere. Every year we do this. It's why the films aren't live yet as well, because we celebrate with the people that are in the films. So we showcase their films to the world for the first time. Anyone can attend this. We showcase the 11 to 18 films, so don't panic if you're a teacher of a 6-year-old and you go, oh my gosh, this is a bit over the heads of my young ones, as some teachers done before. So we show the 11 to 18 or kind of older version films, and also there's an interview with each of the people that I've done ahead of time this year because of the time zone. It isn't recorded, so I'm afraid it is at 9 o'clock GMT time, but we don't record it because then the only chance to watch the films is if you're a registered school, like most of you are. So I think I've answered all the questions that I've seen so far in Slido. Obviously, I've been presenting, so there might have been a few more. I'm just going to quickly load. I don't think so. Let me just have a look here. Miriam's put some links in as well. Amazing. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here. I hope this has been a really useful, but mostly inspirational kind of introduction to what Empathy Week is and what we're trying to achieve. Like I said, please do tell us how you use the resources. Some people tend to use them in drop-down days, others use them across the time, across weeks. I always say to schools, even if you're just using stage one and you're trying to get staff on board as well, because I know that they go, what, another thing? Oh, okay, how do we do it? Say to them, your year group heads or tutor groups, here's something planned every morning or every afternoon when you have pastoral time for a whole 5 weeks. That's designed by teachers and that's that's made and evidence-based. So hopefully that gives you some confidence in what we're doing, and we'd love to hear your feedback. But if there's no more questions, or does anyone have a question? Here usually comes the silence. No, amazing. Stunned into silence. Thank you, Miriam, for being here with me today as well. If you do have any questions, schools@empathy-week.com. We also have a contact form on the website as well. Do get in touch with us and follow us on social media and all that good stuff. And we'll hopefully see you all soon. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And enjoy your night, or have a great day if you're starting your day as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Cheers, Sam.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks, Sam.
Erica, yes, sorry, just a quick question. Yes, students can see the events scheduled. So the live events platform that is designed for students to be there at some of the webinars as well. But teachers can sign up to it. It will go live Monday, and you will get the links and everything to know how to do that. Thank you all. See you all soon.